I never thought I'd be standing here, telling the story. Because for a long time, I believed HOAs were meant to protect communities. I believed the rules were about fairness. I was so wrong. This is the true story of how my homeowners association tried to break me, and how we fought back. I bought my house 5 years ago. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. A quiet street, trim lawns, friendly neighbors, and a thick house rulebook that I barely glanced at because honestly, who really reads those? Everything was peaceful for the first couple of years, until she moved in. Her name was Linda. She was the kind of woman who watched the neighborhood like it was a military base. Always standing behind her blinds, always holding a clipboard, always just waiting for someone to mess up. At first, it was small things. A warning letter because my trash can was visible from the street for 2 hours too long. A fine because my grass was half an inch above the regulation height. A formal complaint because my American flag apparently wasn't centered correctly over my grass. I tried to be polite. I followed every rule, no matter how ridiculous. I mowed my lawn twice a week. I timed my trash can retrieval. I even got out a tape measure for the flag. But the letters just kept coming. It felt personal. Then one day, I came home from work and I found a bright orange sticker plastered on my front door. It read, "Final notice have violation." My hands were literally shaking as I peeled it off and I read the fine print. They claimed they had an unauthorized structure in my backyard. That structure, it was a small, simple wooden bench that I built with my own hands for my late father. He used to sit right there in that spot every single evening before he passed away. That bench wasn't just a piece of furniture to me. It was memory. It was grief. It was love. It was the last physical connection I had to him. I called the HOA immediately. Linda answered the phone. She didn't sound sorry. She sounded pleased. She coldly told me I had 7 days to remove it or I would face daily fines, starting at $50. I begged her to reconsider. I explained the sentimental value, the meaning behind it. She laughed, a short, sharp laugh. And then she said, "Rules are rules." 7 days later, the fines started, $50 a day. Then it jumped to 100. Then legal notices started arriving in the mail, threatening liens and further action. He decided to attend the next HOA meeting, thinking that surely, if he could just explain the situation to the board, logic and human decency would save me. It didn't. The board members sat there like stone statues. Linda stood up and he presented a slideshow of photos of my yard, zooming in on the bench like it was evidence in a high-profile criminal trial. When he tried to speak, to tell my father's story, she chewed me off. "Emotions are irrelevant," she said, looking right at me. "We are a community of rules, not feelings." That's when it hit me this was never about the bench. It was about power. It was about control. Then things got even worse. I received a certified letter stating the HOA was officially considering foreclosure on my home. Foreclosure, over a bench, over fines they created out of thin air, over rules they were twisting to their own benefit. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. It felt like my own home, my sanctuary, was turning against me. I felt completely trapped. But that night, sitting at my kitchen table, surrounded by threatening letters, something changed. I got angry. I pulled out the giant HOA rulebook, the one I'd ignored for years, and I started reading every page, every bylaw, every single footnote. And that's when I found it. Buried deep in an appendix, there was a clause that allowed for small memorial structures, with written notice, not approval, just notice. He had sent that notice 3 years ago when he first built the bench. They had completely ignored it. He had them. He spent the next 48 hours gathering everything. The original email he sent, photos of the bench, every threatening letter and defined notification. Then, he contacted a local news reporter who loved the Get David versus Goliath story. And suddenly, the HOA wasn't so confident anymore. The story went public. My phone started ringing. It was my neighbors, coming forward with their own horror stories about Linda and the board. Decades of fines, endless threats, constant harassment. The community finally had enough. The next HOA meeting was packed. The room was electric. Linda tried to speak, but for the first time, people shouted her down. The board, seeing the tide had turned, quickly held a vote. The fines against me were erased. The foreclosure threat was officially withdrawn. And Linda, she quietly resigned 2 weeks later. Today, that bench is still in my backyard. And every time I sit on it, I'm reminded of my dad, but I am also reminded of something else just as important. How your home should be your safe place, not a battlefield. So if you're watching this and you're being bullied by your HOA, don't stay silent. Read your documents. Talk to your neighbors. Don't let them intimidate you. Because sometimes, the people who are enforcing the rules are the very ones breaking them. And sometimes, the smallest bench can bring down the biggest tyrant. Thanks for listening to my story. If it helped you in any way, please consider subscribing. Stay safe out there.